We finally have a break in this active weather cycle that we've been seeing with our regional headlines, including some drying for the coast. For the valley, some light showers, as well as the foothills and the Sierra, light snow, but pretty much a quintessential winter scene up at Palisades, Tahoe, where you can see the snow. They're trying to clear it out. We got about 20 inches in a 24-hour period, but it continued to pile up through our Monday, and then totality is over 150 inches for some locations in the Sierra. That's making for some great conditions for all the recreation as well as the water supply heading into the dry part of the year. So as we start off our new year, we're anywhere from about 60 to 115% of average throughout this year. A statewide average for snow water equivalent is 90%. That means if we were to melt all that snow and push it downhill, that's going to fill our reservoirs. And to date, we're 90% of where we should be at this point in the season. Major reservoir supply levels are also looking quite healthy, anywhere from about 65 to over 80% capacity, well over average for all of our reservoirs in the northern part of the state. As we head a little bit farther to the south, still over 100% of average, with many reservoirs reporting about 70 to 75% full. Let me show you what some of those storms have been able to do for our biggest reservoir, Lake Shasta. That's in the northern part of the state. And as you can see, once we really ramped up those holiday storms, it started to fill up. We're currently well above average here at 3.5 million acre feet of water in that reservoir. Here's a look at our statewide precipitation. Just sheer numbers are impressive. Eureka, 20 plus inches of rain. San Francisco closing in on about 11 and a half. Santa Barbara over 20 inches of rain since the beginning of the water year, October 1st. And that puts all of us well ahead of pace of what we normally see. Certainly suppresses the fire danger. Remember, last year at this time, we were looking at increasing fire danger throughout Southern California, but now a totally soaked California. As we head into our Tuesday, a bit of a break here, some patchy fog, occasional light showers along the coast, but then things start to return to an active weather period on Wednesday. We're going to see much lighter showers move through the central part of the state, pushing into the southern part of the state by the evening, and still some lingering snow showers for the Tahoe Basin. Overall, though, again, not the cycle of storms that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. Highs for our Tuesday in the Sierra, close to 40. We're in the 50s as we head down the hill to right around 60. Central Sierra also in the 40s for our Tuesday afternoon highs, 60s for the Central Valley. As we move towards the Central Coast, highs are going to be in the 50s and 60s. Occasional light showers periodically through the midweek forecast, 60s inland. As we head into the Bay Area, highs in the upper 50s, low 60s for coastal valley communities, northwest coast, which has really had a brunt of some of the flooding issues that we've been seeing. Highs are going to be in the 50s with a bigger break in the active storm cycle. 50s for the north end of the valley and the capital region throughout Sacramento. Highs are going to be in the upper 50s to right around 60. So looking at our extended forecast for the mountains, slight chance of some snow flurries on Wednesday. Otherwise, a dry outlook. Great time to hit those slopes, by the way, this weekend. For the foothills, highs are going to be in the 40s and 50s. We get a bit of that cold weather settling in for the middle of the week, but then we actually start to see a much drier and warmer weather pattern once we get past this weekend into the following week. So we get a big break in this active storm cycle here. Time to dry out, enjoy some of the beautiful recreation throughout the region.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Brendan Minchef, and we're going to talk about what an atmospheric river is. It's a term you may have heard, you may not be familiar with it, but you may have heard the term Pineapple Express. Not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. However, as we will learn, every Pineapple Express is a type of atmospheric river. So as we look at the map, these are most common along the U.S. West Coast, especially in the wintertime. However, other parts of the United States, including the Gulf Coast and the Northeast, can see atmospheric rivers. In the Gulf of Mexico can act as that moisture source for atmospheric rivers moving up through the southeast and into the northeast. And sometimes you can get a nor'easter that can be attached to an atmospheric river. But let's jump into it. Let's look at the map. Well, when high pressure is sitting off the west coast, what that does is it kind of, for the most part, blocks the moisture from coming in. When high pressure slides a little bit further to the south, and especially when it's coupled with a storm passing through either British Columbia or the Pacific Northwest or even Northern California, what can happen is it can tap in to this atmospheric river. And what that is, it's a narrow band of moisture, about 1,000 miles long or so, and it can pull in a lot of tropical moisture into an area. For instance, this textbook example is showing it impacting California. And when that happens, it can bring a lot of rain. And if it's cold enough or your mountains are high enough, it can bring a lot of snow with it. This type of setup here, where it originates near Hawaii, is a pineapple express. Here's some more facts about an atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers carry 7.5 to 15 times the flow of the mouth of the Mississippi River. They vary. Some of them are stronger, some of them are weaker, but they are very, very wet systems, and that's why we get a lot of rain from these. And atmospheric river events are responsible for the majority of the water supply on the U.S. West Coast. Here is a satellite image of an atmospheric river. Again, this is a type of atmospheric river that we might call a pineapple express. It originates near Hawaii. High pressure sits here, and so it brings this moisture, for instance, here into California. But if your high pressure is a little bit further north, it can bring that moisture up into the Pacific Northwest. Again, this setup here is a pineapple express. So to be clear, a pineapple express is an atmospheric river that pulls moisture from Hawaii. But not every atmospheric river is a pineapple express. This one here, here's another example. You see the atmospheric river extending out from Hawaii, but that moisture is being pushed into the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. So every pineapple express is an atmospheric river, but not every atmospheric river is a pineapple express. And we rank atmospheric rivers based on two things: by the amount of water in them and how long that atmospheric river is going to last. So a weak or level 1 atmospheric river is primarily beneficial, not a lot of flood risk, relatively the same for a level 2 moderate atmospheric river. By the time we start talking about a level 3, AR3 on the scale here, that's a stronger atmospheric river. It's both equal parts beneficial and hazardous, but as soon as you start working your way up in strength to AR category 4, AR category 5 on the scale, well, that means now we're talking about atmospheric rivers that are mostly hazardous or primarily hazardous, meaning they have so much moisture and they're going to last for so long that the flood risk is much higher.
I'm meteorologist Caitlin McGrath, and I want to take a few minutes and talk about some of the winter weather you'll hear making headlines here over the cold winter months, starting with Arctic blasts that come from the polar vortex. So let's start with the basics. What the polar vortex is. It's an area of low pressure and cold air that surrounds it that sits at both the north and the South Pole. When we have a strong polar vortex, we have a really tight jet stream that keeps that cold air trapped in place at the poles. But sometimes the jet stream weakens and that polar vortex, that Arctic air, can sink south. Sometimes it can go as far south in the United States as parts of Texas and the southeast. But most often you'll kind of hear about these Arctic blasts through parts of the Midwest, the Great Plains, and the Northeast. Now you'll also hear us talking about Alberta clippers, and they get their names because oftentimes these weak little winter systems form in Canada, right around the region of Alberta, and they just kind of clip parts of the United States. This is the typical path that they may take as they move through the Great Plains into the Midwest, across parts of the Mid-Atlantic, and into the Northeast. They are fast moving and they oftentimes lack moisture. These are not your big blizzards, they're not big nor'easters, but they typically are enough to bring just a little bit of light snow, and oftentimes what moves in behind a clipper is really cold air and blustery wind. Just two types of weather phenomenon that you'll hear about here as we head through the next several months.